Okay, Erin, it's all you.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight. I wanted to start quickly with just some introductions of the EEC staff. So I'm actually going to have people introduce themselves, and Phil, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Phil Harrison. I'm manager of the Background Record Check Unit. Nice to meet all of you.
And Flo.
Hi, everyone. I'm Flo House. I'm with the Family and Community Supports Unit. Great to see you all.
And Amy Carey.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Carey, and I'm the Program Quality Specialist in Region 1.
And Eli.
Hi, I'm Eli Cole. I work with the Department on Strategic Planning, and tonight I'm Logistics and Zoom in Chief.
And Allison, and then you're going to introduce your staff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Zolator Langoni. I'm the Family Child Care Supervisor. Nice to see everyone here tonight. I'm going to start by introducing Iris Crespo. Iris, give a wave.
Hi, everyone. I'm Iris Crespo, Family Child Care Licensor. Glad to be here.
And Sandra Moultrie is next.
Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here with you.
Maneli Barros.
Good evening, everyone.
John Beaujolais.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Beaujolais. I am a Family Child Care Licensor. Good evening.
And our newest licensor, Melissa Gauger.
Hi, I'm Melissa Gauger, and I'm happy to be here. I'm a Family Child Care Licensor.
And Carmen.
Is Carmen here?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carmen Wallace. I'm a part of the Family Child Care Licensing Unit.
Sorry, Carmen, I didn't see you there.
No worries. I showed up a couple minutes late.
All right. I think we're ready, Eli. All right, so we're going to go over the agenda. As you can see, it's a pretty packed agenda for tonight. We're going to start off with an update from the professional development centers. Then we're going to give you some general EEC updates. We're going to talk about the health and safety review and upcoming changes. We're going to talk about some EEC policy updates. And then we're going to move into some licensing regulations, engagement updates, and lastly, financial information and feedback. So I believe, Amanda, you were going to take it over for the PDCs?
I can, but I believe it was Kim. Kim, are you here?
I am sorry. I probably snuck in late and didn't. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Amanda, and then I can jump in.
Hi, I'm Amanda Thayer, and I'm the training specialist for Western PDC. Nice to see everybody.
Hi, and I'm the program coordinator. My name is Kim Quinlan. We represent with our colleague, Liz Charlene Tate, the 3 staff people who work on facilitating the offerings that our professional development center has. One of the primary activities that we do is to provide professional learning communities. As the slide describes so nicely, this is an opportunity for you to engage with peers, to share expertise that you have in your field, to test new strategies, become part of a professional community with other family child care providers, enhance your program quality, and improve the learning experiences for children. There's a lovely quote here about how people enjoy these groups. You can sign up for them at the EEC Strong Start website, which is here on the slide that you're looking at. And while there are some that are identified specifically for Western Mass, you would notice them on the website because they have a little orange cube that says Western, but you are welcome to register for offerings provided anywhere across the state. So please know that when you go to look. And then Eli, if we could have the next slide, please. In addition to our PLCs, we also offer one-on-one coaching and consultation supports. We are happy to work with you on any quality enhancement or licensing issues that you may be working on or faced with. This is a list here of some of the things that we are happy to help you out with, but truly if there's any needs that you have in your program to improve the quality or any professional goals that you have for yourself, we're happy to either help you ourselves or refer you to another EEC funded entity that might be able to provide the appropriate support. So please reach out to Amanda or I or Liz at any time. And Amanda, would you drop our emails into the chat? Thank you so much. So if there's anything, if there is anything we can do for you at any time, please let us know. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Kim. Some general updates for you. As people are aware, we are doing our testing sites across the state. And as of a few weeks ago, we now have 3 sites that are open 6 days a week from Monday through Saturday. And those are Braintree, Swansea, and a new site in Tewksbury. All the other sites are now open from 10 to 6, and there's no pre-registration required. Turnaround times are now under 48 hours and often 24 hours because we are now doing the testing within Massachusetts. For us out here, we have our Westfield site, our Dalton site, and since our region straddles further, we also have a site in Sturbridge and in Athol. So again, any opportunity you can take. If you need testing, please go up. It's drive up testing, and they will also test children, even children under 1 year old. One of our favorite things is our supplemental PPE. As many people know, you can order PPE through EEC. We have done over 10,500 orders since February. 100% of the February and March orders have now been delivered. And again, they're being delivered in a variety of different ways, from Uber to couriers. It's amazing how they're getting the PPE out. An important thing to remember is to please order by the 5th of the month to get a guarantee of getting that delivered by the end of the month. Orders are limited, and contact information is in lead. EEC is committed to providing supplemental PPE through the end of June, and we will revisit this if the need persists. And as always, if you run into a bind, please talk to your licensor. We do have some supplies left that we can make sure we get to you. Also, as people know, people eligible in childcare work groups, including anyone working in or supporting person in childcare, are now eligible for the vaccine. As of this weekend, anyone 16 and older is eligible to get the vaccine. So we do recommend that you use the mass pre-registration system, and you will be notified when an appointment at a mass vac site is available. They're really great at sending you a text and an email and helping you schedule an appointment. Travel orders became a travel advisory on March 22nd. The travel advisory encourages travelers to quarantine for 10 days. All fully vaccinated adults and children under 10 years old are exempt from the advisory. Programs should communicate their expectations clearly to families that may create their own return to care policies for out-of-state travel. Please talk to your parents if you know they're going to be leaving the state, or in some cases leaving the country for visits, to let them know what you expect and what they need to do when they come back. The same with teachers. If teachers are going on vacation, you want to make sure you're clear with them beforehand on what is expected. Health and safety review reporting. We've been pretty lucky. People are doing a great job reporting cases. The playbook includes instructions on how to report positive COVID-19 tests and close contacts. When a child, household member of a child, educator or staff member in the program tests positive, there are 2 reports you need to submit. So the very first report you need to submit is a COVID positive report with DPH, and you can get a link to that through the LEAD website. They will help you with that. And also you need to fill an EEC injury report. For close contact, only an EEC report is required. So you want to fill out that injury report and notify us. An EEC report is not required if someone in the program simply has symptoms without any known exposure. So that is something, a little bit of a change, because people were doing really good due diligence and reporting everything because they wanted to be super careful and they wanted to make sure they were letting us know what was going on in their program. Please note follow-up events, someone testing positive after having contact with a COVID positive person in the same program should report as an update to the existing EEC injury report and not a new report. And we are working on that bug because there could be a bug if the report's closed. You cannot update it and you need to put in a second report, but we will be getting back to you on that. Health and safety upcoming changes. EEC will be updating the minimum requirements and playbook this month, which is April. As you know, we're trying to, as the landscape is changing and things are changing around us, we are trying to get out as quickly as possible the most updated information to you to keep you and your programs and families safe. The revised minimum requirements will increase flexibilities for programs when proper health and safety protocols are in place. And we are finding people doing amazing jobs and actually going above and beyond what they're required to do. Optimize the available of outdoor activities during spring, summer, and early fall. We're seeing a lot of great outdoor activities. People doing things like getting tents and doing lessons outside, doing a lot more activities outside, and again, opening windows, getting fresh air and opening doors and really enjoying the good weather we're currently having. We're finding the strategies in programs are working, but again, it's not time to relax or abandon strategies that have worked to keep children and educators safe. We're actually getting reports where teachers have been vaccinated and they're fine, but the COVID cases are with the children because they haven't been vaccinated. So don't let down your guard because not everyone's vaccinated and we want to make sure everyone is as safe as possible. Okay, some update to the COVID-19 closures. And again, more information on each policy and links are available at the end of this presentation, which will be available in the engagement portal. EEC recently updated the COVID-19 closure program policy for programs receiving subsidy payments to reflect the new realities of programs operations and clarification of expectations. So again, as a reminder, programs can receive subsidized payment for closure due to things like sick staff member or children and the need to perform deep cleaning, which we've had some programs do for a day or a couple days. The update clarifies that programs may be paid for closures related to the administration of the COVID-19 vaccine and possible short-term effects of getting the vaccine. So that is something new, and that is something we get an awful lot of questions on. So now it's in writing and we have it for you. A new thing also is closures for 3 days or fewer or less do not require approval from me. So that's a good thing too, but please make sure you're documenting why you closed and keeping that on site with you. Please note that this policy applies only to programs that receive subsidy payment and does not replace the need to submit appropriate incident reports even if you don't take subsidy children. So if you are taking all private children, you still need to fill out those reports. In-person instruction and transportation. DESE required all elementary schools to provide full in-person instruction beginning April 5th. EEC policies have not changed in regards to remote instruction. EEC programs still serve school-age children during the school day if remote instruction is allowed by the school district. So there are a few communities and towns that are still allowing a hybrid or some remote instruction. Subsidy policies regarding remote and hybrid instructions has not changed. So that is the change before April 15th. April 5th is still the same. Something new is the EEC updated its transportation policy to align it with DESE for both school buses and vans. It states that all adults and children 5 years and older must wear a mask at all times while in transportation and do not have to maintain physical distancing. Proper ventilation is also required during transportation, so keeping the windows open to keep the fresh air coming. Please note that is still best practice to maintain physical distancing even when all parties are masked. So we will continue to strongly encourage it as much as possible during transportation. Rate increases in PFML. The subsidy rate was approved at the March 2021 EEC board meeting. The increase will be implemented by May 1st and will be retroactive to July 2020. EEC encourages the funds associated with increase in transportation reimbursement to be used for transportation purposes. EEC has posted rate increase documents in CCFA, and the CCR&Rs will send notification to center-based programs with more details. Please note that they're really busy at the CCR&Rs trying to get this work done. So we do ask you to be patient. If they don't get back to you right away, they are really working to get these increases out. For family child care, providing care to children with subsidized tuition, you are now eligible to participate in the Mass Paid Family and Medical Leave Program. Eligible providers can apply for this through the Department of Family and Medical Leave. If you plan on taking leave, please notify your licensor at least 30 days before the first day of your leave. And if you need to take it unexpectedly, please notify your licensor as soon as possible, please. Again, more information on the policies and links are available at the end of the presentation, which will be posted on our engagement portal. And I'm going to turn it over to Eli.
Okay, thank you, Erin. We wanted to share a little bit about the engagement that EEC has been undertaking around its strategic action plan. In December, the commissioner, at her conversation with the commissioner, relaunched the strategic plan officially. And since then, EEC has been conducting a lot of live engagement with the purpose of ensuring that all of the initiatives in the strategic plan are shaped at their very beginning by the voices of those constituents who are impacted by them the most. And so there have been 21 live engagement opportunities and 8 surveys. And across both of those methods, we've had responses from over 7,000, representing 7,000 responses. And those sessions have been offered in the day as well as the evening hours. They've been offered with Spanish interpretation, and we have also ensured that these engagement opportunities are offered by program type where applicable, with specific sessions for family child care, for group or center-based care, for those who only work with school-age children, etc., to make sure that what is unique about each of those program settings can really be heard in the feedback. So this has been a lot of activity between December and March, and we are thrilled to have gotten so much feedback to shape initiatives like quality and the future approach from EEC around program quality, how EEC can support educators and think about a credentialing system and a professional registry for educators. how the licensing regulations can be reviewed and potentially revised to reflect new ways of thinking about monitoring compliance, safety, and quality, and countless other topics. So at this point, we have seen in our engagement portal that over 13,000 people have visited since December and viewed pages 33,000 times. So we are just extraordinarily excited to see so much engagement with the strategic plan and the direction of the department. I do want to share that right now, while we've paused the live activity around specific initiatives, we're continuing the conversations in the regional town hall format, but we've paused sessions on specific topics for the moment. And that is because we want to give everyone just a breath and a chance to go and see all of the engagement that's happened so far. So on the Strategic Action Plan portal, you can actually look at the past engagements page and see video recordings of any of the sessions that you might have missed. And we also are posting summaries of feedback there. So as soon as they are analyzed and understood, we post them back on the web page for people to read and absorb and complete that feedback loop so that we are able to hear from voices of the Commonwealth, reflect it back and say, did we hear this correctly? And then continue the conversation to the next phase of development for each area of work. So if you want to go to that webpage, you can scan this QR code with your phone or camera, your phone camera or your iPad, and visit it directly. So I shared that right now we are paused, and we will be on pause for at least the rest of April. And then sometime in early to mid-May, we will start with larger sessions again, where we can share what EEC has changed based on all of the feedback to date, and more questions about the next steps for each initiative. But we also will have engagement that is more focused on those who may not be able to come to a live engagement or participate in a survey, but whose voices are still really critical to shape the initiatives underway. So we will have tools that you can take to your family child care community of practice, or a conversation with families, or a convening within your region of programs. So we will put sort of tools and questions for you to be able to have more informal conversations with those that you work with and in the community, to bring that information back to inform the next phase of work. So we are really excited to get even more voices included in this next part of the process. So in order to show you what EEC is doing with everything that's been shared so far, we wanted to come back and report on the feedback that was shared with us in January around licensing regulations and how EEC is using that in order to shape the approach that it takes to its work. And so there are a few key concepts that we want to share. And so one is, we understand from all of the feedback shared that there is this balance of consistency across the regulations, and needing a way for the regulations to support that consistency, while also recognizing what is unique for each provider in each setting. And so one way that we are thinking about how we can accomplish that is through what we are thinking about as a regulation versus policy sort of framework. And so those of you who have followed regulation changes in the past will have seen that it is a somewhat lengthy process to actually revise or amend regulations that has to go through the EEC board. There's a public comment period, et cetera. And that's not always appropriate for things that might actually change more frequently than perhaps on an annual or every few year basis. And so, for example, when we think about federal guidelines around the ADA Act, or we think about what we know now about child development, but that may be evolving over time, those are the kinds of things that might be better housed in policy, which are more malleable and can be changed as needed. And so together they make up a sort of set of expectations, but the regulations are that very, very clear line of what the expectation is for programs to follow. And then policies talk about the how, the potential ways that that might be accomplished. So that is the framework that we've been thinking about to provide that balance between the need for consistency, the need for shared expectations and understanding, while also having a framework that can adapt over time. We also asked in those sessions in January, what is the sort of opinion or temperature among programs on the idea of separating regulations by program type. So current regulations kind of think of everyone all together with exceptions here or there. And in the future, what we heard, over 95% of responses supported the idea that we really need unique expectations by program setting, so that family childcare has its own set of regulations, center-based has its own separate set of regulations, with out of school time perhaps having some exceptions within either one. And what has the team, this is not me, but Joy Cohen, the brilliant policy leader at EEC, has been leading the charge and thinking very, very, very concretely about what that means, not just in how the regulations might be different, but how the language might be different. How there really can be responsive and customed to what the strengths are for each of these settings that really set it apart. And so she has given this draft. This is not the regulation content at all, but wanted to provide an example here of how that looks across these three settings. And so the concept of a daily schedule is something that's in regulation, would continue to be in regulation. And that has some core components like inside and outside time, free choice and activity, time to read, etc. But those might look different depending on the age group that's being served, whether it's a mixed age group or a group of preschoolers only, for example. And the setting in which they're happening, as well as the staffing or the oversight that is available for educators for that group of children. And so, for example, a center might work on a period schedule, almost like a public school where 6 classrooms all have sort of intersecting schedules that need to be sort of fixed ahead of time. Whereas the family childcare might actually have a more flexible daily schedule where if the weather is nice for the afternoon, you might want to go outside for the afternoon rather than the morning when it's rainy or cold. And so having that kind of flexibility through the day with a smaller group of children is possible in a way that it might not be possible in a center. And so you can see here that what Joy has provided as an example reflects that, where in a family childcare, the regulation might say there should be time for both indoor and outdoor play, weather permitting, throughout the day. So it's really up to the family childcare educator to set when that happens. But in a center-based setting, it might say there must be at least one indoor period and one outdoor play period, weather permitting. So it's reflecting this sort of difference in how that's accomplished in those settings. So those are just these are just a couple of examples of how these things might look different, and also might be different by age group or mixed age, etc. Another thing that we want to share is the way that we are thinking, and those of you who attended these sessions will remember a lot of questions about these concepts, thinking about what is expected of the program versus what is expected of the educator who is overseeing the children in that grouping or that home. And if you think about what licensing regulations are meant to accomplish, they're really about a licensee being able to obtain and maintain a license for that program that they are running. Now, with family childcare, it's all mixed up together often because a family childcare educator or owner is both the licensee for the program and the educator who is qualified to run that program or to be the educator in that space. And so the separation is less clear. It's more sort of built together. But I think as we've been sort of thinking about this idea of educators and programs, we've thought about a set of expectations that are about the individual. This is the better way to think about it, the individual. Things like background record check, pre-service training like EEC essentials, maybe the CPR requirement, first aid requirement. Those aren't necessarily expectations of a program in the same way that they are of an individual. So as a family childcare educator, if you have an assistant, there will be expectations for their qualifications that are not actually yours as a program to make sure are accomplished. It's on the individual to make sure they're met. As the owner, operator, lead educator in the program, you have to make sure whoever you hire as an assistant meets those qualifications, but it's really on that individual to go ahead and accomplish them, if that makes sense. So it's starting to sort of parse out what is responsibility of the individual, what is the responsibility of a program, and how those things come together to represent regulatory expectations and accountability. I think we also want to recognize, and we heard loud and clear, clear as a bell in the engagement around educator qualifications, how important it is that EEC really recognize multiple pathways to reaching a level of expertise as an educator. And so many frameworks out there across the country talk about credit earning coursework, degrees, a CDA, some of the things that are that perhaps one might think of as a credential. And in Massachusetts and the Commonwealth, it's very clear that experience is critical and that there are decades of experience that educators across the state have earned and have built their expertise by working with children every day with passion, with care, with growing and growing expertise. And so as EEC is thinking about how we work with educators, we are thinking very clearly about how central experience is to developing expertise and thinking beyond sort of traditional frameworks around education and training. The last thing I will say about the regulations is that we have heard a lot of feedback about the way that they're structured. And so we heard things like, when I print them, the type is just too small for me to even be able to read it. And can't we use online technology to be able to search and navigate and find things in different ways? We need more translation into other languages. So all kinds of things that will increase the ability to access and use them in a friendly way. And so we've been thinking, as Joy has been revising the regulations, we've also been thinking about how that gets presented and housed on the website in a way that makes it more accessible. Things like having a table of contents where you can click and go right to that section, being able to put all of a topic's information together in one area. And then things like having the policies that relate to that regulatory area side by side. So you don't have to go back and forth between two documents or search for a file that might be somewhere in a website that we can't even find anymore. But having them all in a living document side by side so that all the information's in one place to find together. And then also thinking about what the reason is behind each regulation. So it's not just words on paper without an understanding of what it's trying to accomplish. Instead, the rationale or the reason is built right into the document, so that when a owner, operator, educator is in conversation with a family childcare licensor, they both have the same sort of paragraph saying, why is this important? and then can have a conversation about the ways that the why is being met through the regulations. And then, of course, finally, having support templates. We heard a lot about how helpful templates would be in order to help ensure that expectations are mutually understood and that they are met. And so I think as every opportunity that EEC is finding to develop a supportive template that can be housed right in the same area with a clickable link is something that is very much part of this process. So wanted to just give this update. I will say that in the process of the licensing regulation review, Joy is writing. So it's not as if there's some mysterious draft floating in the atmosphere at all. It's very much a work in progress. As feedback has come in, she has continued to integrate it and start to think about things in a different way, and is working very closely with the licensing teams across every region right now and their supervisors to really think about whether she's headed in the right direction or where things need to adjust before coming back out to have conversations with the field in May and beyond. So I think we also wanted to share some information on funding and financing. Thank you, Marcella. That's great. Really great to hear. Thank you. So the future direction regarding funding and financing. And once again, I'm the spokesperson, not the brains behind this either. Jocelyn Bowen on the EEC team is leading the work around some of the grants that are coming forward shortly, along with the commissioner, of course. And so I am representing her for this piece and don't want to take credit for any of these brilliant ideas, but wanted to share some of where what to expect from the future grants that are coming. And so the most relevant grant here for all of you is the Family Childcare Facilities grants. And so understanding that that there is sort of a need right now around educators who have been working some of the first back to work in the education system, have been working through just extraordinary circumstances, tireless commitment to health, to safety, and to child development, and balancing so many conflicting needs over the last year and more of pandemic operations. These operational grants are really designed to support educators. In the center-based world, that means grants that target educator stipends or bonuses. In the family childcare world, where the salary or the take home for the educator is essentially what's left after expenses are paid, EEC is trying to support educators by offsetting some of the expenses that have been racked up through the last year. And so these have been called facilities grants. They really can support a wide range of things, whether it's expenses that have already been incurred or that are planned, thinking about some of the health and safety expenses, as well as program quality expenses, program materials, really anything in the physical environment that is costing money this year is part of what's eligible for this grant. And so these are expected shortly. I think the information is being posted sort of in the next week or so, with the expectation that funding would roll out shortly thereafter. These are available to all family childcare. So they are not targeting only those family childcare that work with subsidies, as some of the previous funding streams were restricted to do. EEC has been able to find additional funding to ensure that there are grants for those who work in the subsidized system that's sort of restricted by the legislature. EEC has found additional funding to come in and make sure that opportunity is actually available to all family childcare, whether working in the subsidy system or not. And so those will come soon. The other thing I'll say is they're not competitive. They are available to all, and all it's not as if there's sort of a competition for a small number of funds. They're available to all. And so the application, when we talk about the application here, it's really just verifying a certain set of information. rather than trying to kind of compete for scarce funds. The next set of grants, and I see the question, this is not going to be offered through the COMBISE system. I think that's just a notification in COMBISE. The next set of grants coming are what have been termed stabilization grants. And they are also designed for all programs. And so center-based, family childcare, out-of-school time, whether subsidized or not subsidized, all licensed programs that have opened when this grant releases are eligible for these funds. The stabilization grants are designed around a formula. We'll talk more about that formula in a moment, but right now it's been termed the Commonwealth Cares for Children, or the C3 formula. And the conversation about this began in March with a public session hosted March 4th, focused on financing models for programs, which is on that past engagement site. Feel free to go back and listen to that if you like. But we'll talk more about how this formula is under development, but the point is that, that funds are for all programs and are intended to be allocated through this sort of mid to late spring, and to be distributed on a monthly basis over a series of months, depending on the available funding. And so just to talk in a little bit more detail about process and about what to expect. So there is a team from a consulting group called Third Sector, and they have been advising EEC on the development of the formula. And I say advising, they're really sort of like designers, but the advising is coming from the field. So that March session was where a lot of feedback was collected, and this conversation will happen again before a formula is finalized. And so Third Sector and EEC will host additional conversations on this topic in May. I'll say that this is coming from the strategic plan, actually. So pre-COVID, when EEC was thinking about how to support the field in a different way, it was having conversations about what it might look like to move from per child funding to operational funding instead, with the idea that that the expenses of running a home do not necessarily always go up and down based on how many children are coming each day. Food expenses might go up and down, but utilities don't, and rent and mortgage don't. And so, so in order to be a little bit more reflective of what it means to operate a family childcare home, the funding also needs to have a level of stability regardless of how many children are enrolling or attending each day. And so COVID, as you can imagine, absolutely exacerbated and made this a much more urgent conversation, and also offered new opportunities with some of the federal funds coming to go ahead and push this innovation forward. So the goal is to find more stable funding for day-to-day operations so that programs can remain viable and open and continue to meet higher levels of quality in their support for children and families, in their ability for educators to earn a living wage, et cetera. So the formula, let's talk more about the formula. It is being developed in partnership with those who attend these engagement sessions, and very much driven by that feedback and input, because operational grants need to be responsive to the experience of those who are running programs. And so there are questions that EEC has been asking and will continue to ask, like what the model should look like, what we can accomplish in the immediate term, what's required in order to really stabilize those programs that have been hurting so much financially. And then what can it look like longer term? Is there potential for this to be the new normal of how funding is allocated? How should we think about programs in a way that no set of providers is left behind in any way, and that the sort of plan for how funding is distributed is really inclusive and recognizes what programs are operating, the constraints they're operating under, the budgets they have to work with, et cetera. And so in May, EEC actually plans to come back for another stage of this conversation to say, here is where we think the formula might be headed. What additional feedback do you think we need to know as we start to finalize an approach to this? So there's this box here at the top. I feel like we always have this kind of caveat. Decisions aren't made. So we might have this on paper. That doesn't mean it's a done deal. It's all a work in progress right now. But the idea right now is that the formula would use federal stimulus funding, so the COVID stimulus funding from the federal government. The most recent set of this funding appears to allocate around $100 million to Massachusetts for early education and care. That funding is very much not promised, so it has to be appropriated by the state legislature. It's very much in planning and development. So no decisions have been made. This is kind of the starting of the thinking, and why it's important to hear from people as we go through the next month and a half. So initially, what has been I think articulated is that Massachusetts can expect around 100 million. The idea is that it would be distributed over multiple months, so that it becomes almost like a monthly operating investment, and that it can be expected over a period of months in that way. I think I said earlier, it's not a competitive grant. So similar to the other operational grants, it's not competitive. It would be available to all, but there would be an application just to verify certain key pieces of information. And then I think importantly, this is not replacing subsidy funding. It's not replacing any other type of funding, state funding. It is additional funding, brand new funding for the system. Okay, and then the last thing, I think we want to just share a little bit of the current thinking about what the formula looks like. So the sort of starting point is that there is a base amount of funding that should be required, that's required just to run a program, period. No matter where you are, no matter how big you are, et cetera, there's a base amount of funding that covers some kind of percentage of the cost to run the program. Not sure what that percentage would be yet, but I think they're testing that. And then how much of that cost is required in order to really reach stability so that program operations are able to proceed and sort of be in place through the pandemic. So for example, a program would have to be open in order to be eligible for that funding, because it is about what it costs to be open through that period of months. Then there's this idea that once you have that base level that's understood, how do you adjust that or scale it based on things like program size? So a family childcare with 10 kids might have different sort of expenses than one with 6 kids. And so how do you think about that? A family childcare operating with a lot of families that need additional wraparound supports might have extra expenses to bring in mental health and other sorts of housing referrals, different types of supports that families might need. And then quality. So what does quality look like in the family childcare context, and how is that incorporated into the thinking about a formula? So all of those things I think are on the table as EEC is trying to tackle what this formula should look like. And the idea that this would kind of scale up and down as we think about how the funding is distributed. So the formula guides the funding amounts. So this is the current sort of diagram or thinking about the different aspects of the formula. But as I said, it's all very much in flux and being developed as we speak. So I know we are almost at time, and you've had a long day with many of you with the children and need to go have dinner or just put your feet up. So I don't want to keep you any longer than necessary, and I will turn back to Erin for last words before we leave tonight.
All right, well, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for spending your evening with us. We really appreciate it, and we hope the information you received was really helpful. And again, please check our engagement website to get all the information. We'll probably post it midweek, I think, Eli, so that you'll be able to get all the links to it. And if you want to rehear their recording, you'll be able to do that also. So thank you everyone again, and have a great night, and we'll see you soon.